The first thing to say about queen rearing is that lots of people think that queen rearing is really complicated, and it's what I would like to stress is it's not just about grafting. And I think lots of people think that queen rearing and grafting are the same thing, and they're not. And there are methods of queen rearing which are well within the scope of a competent beekeeper. Has anybody in this room done any swarm control this season so far? Okay. You're rearing queens with your swarm control. Has anybody deliberately produced emergency cells at some point during their... yeah, okay, you've done queen rearing. And none of it involved any grafting. Have you had colonies that have produced supersedure cells? And you've allowed it to progress, or you've been raising queens? So you've been doing queen rearing, although that sort of queen rearing one might consider as being passive, and the bees are basically running the agenda in most instances. So, but there are alternatives, and we can do active queen rearing where the beekeeper is in control of the timetable and what's involved. And it's an opportunity, if you do active queen rearing, for you to raise queens from your best colonies, which I think all of you would think would be, a reasonable thing to do. Okay, we've got some beginners here, so I thought we'd just very, very quickly go over the basic biology. So the queen lays an egg, and that egg sits around for 3 days, and then it turns into a larva. And if it's a fertilised egg, on the first day that it's a larva, it will get fed lots and lots and lots of royal jelly. If that egg is then going to go on to be a worker, the amount of jelly that it's fed starts to reduce. If, however, that egg is destined to be a queen, they carry on feeding it loads and loads and loads of royal jelly. So in some ways you could think about a worker is actually a queen that's just been starved, if you like, or fed differently anyway. And the thing that makes the difference is that the cell is pointing downwards. So if it's a downward pointing cell, they give it loads and loads and loads of royal jelly. And if it's a normal, basically horizontal cell, not quite horizontal as you all know, but basically a horizontal cell, it gets fed as a worker. If the colony wants to raise a queen, we can raise a queen from a larva that's on day 4, day 5 or day 6 of the cycle. However, because these larvae here at day 5 and day 6 haven't had as much royal jelly, it means they won't produce queens that are as big and as good and as effective as they would be if they're raised from a larvae in day 4 of the life cycle. And when your bees raise emergency cells, they may actually produce emergency cells from larvae in all of these stages, but when we get round to the time that they're going to be emerging, they will have reduced most of them down, and colonies, about 90% of the queens that are produced as emergency cells originally started as day 3 eggs or day 4 larvae. And if you are going to do active queen rearing, you want to be raising queens from larvae at day 4 if you're going to get the best ones. If you're going to raise queens actively, it's important that you raise them from your best colonies. And this is basically common sense, but it's worth going through. You want to raise queens, you want to produce more queens from colonies that are headed by queens that are docile. I think everybody would agree with that. We want them to be disease-free. I think that would be, or certainly have no significant disease. And then after that, you may have your own individual preferences. So you might like a particular type of bee, a particular colour, or a particular something that alludes to perhaps a traditional black bee, or you might like Italians or whatever. That's a personal choice. You probably want to have bees that are low swarming. You want to have bees that are productive. You want to have bees that overwinter. So in terms of the criteria that you use to select your breeder queens, you will have your own preferences, and that's entirely up to you. But clearly there has to be some selection process. If you selectively rear from your best queens, you have the opportunity to improve the quality of your stock overall. Now, I'm not a geneticist by any means, but as a rough rule of thumb, 25% of the queens that you produce will be better than the mother queen. Around about 50% of them will be just as good as she was, and about 25% of them will be worse. That's a very rough rule of thumb, but I think it sounds like common sense, doesn't it? So if the following year you then breed from that 25% that were the best, then hopefully you will have bees that are even better than they were. And over a series of years, you should end up with the sort of bees that you want. It also means that the 25% that aren't very good, you can cull those colonies and you can put your better queens in because you've got the opportunity to produce quite a number. I think it's important to differentiate between queen rearing and queen breeding. If you're raising queens as an amateur beekeeper, you will be able to select the queens, but you haven't got any control over the drones. Now, the way the commercial people do this is they have isolated mating apiaries that they surround by colonies that they like that are producing drones that are then going to mate with the queens. And that's certainly something that you can't do if you've only got 2, 3, 4, 5 hives. Obviously you can't, unless there's a movement within an association perhaps to have a communal effort. So queen rearing means that you're just raising queens and you don't have any control over the drones. So it may not be as successful as you would like it to be because your local drones are dreadful. But what you can do with your own colonies, if you've got an awful colony, and I haven't done this, but it's something you could consider doing, is you could destroy the drones, the drone brood from the horrible colonies. And that will reduce exposure to local beekeepers. And I have heard it suggested that what you can do is you can take the drone comb in your horrible colonies, destroy it, replace it with drone comb from good colonies, and put the destroyed comb into the good colony, which will then raise more drones. So, which are good. So that's another opportunity. That is something that you can do if you felt so inclined. Today we're going to look at a couple of techniques that we've investigated and we thought that we would give a go. Now, one of the things, if you are going to do queen rearing, and this doesn't matter whether we're looking at emergency cells or swarm control or whatever, is we do have to work within a timetable because the queens, the raising of the queens works to a timetable. If we do some grafting, or if we did some punching, or if we have a vertical split, which are things that we're going to be looking at today, we then have to work out when those queens are going to emerge, and we have to make sure that we get those queen cells out at the appropriate time, because the last thing we want is 5 queens running around in the same colony, which won't be very productive at all. So there are various timetable helps that you can get. So I'm going to distribute this around, and this is one by Bibber. You can go and look it up on the internet. You can download it. It's some sort of complicated computer thing, but you can put in the date that you start, and it will then give you all the dates when you have to do things. So you can download this. I can get it for you if you want, etc. So I've put this round today, and I've set today's date, which I think is the 26th. Is it the 26th today? Okay. So I've put the date in today that we're going to start our queen rearing today, to give you an example then, and you can follow it. It tells you what dates you have to do everything. Okay, that's just a very brief introduction. The practical things we're going to move on to in a minute. Some of it was quite simple, so I apologise for the experienced beekeepers, but it's great to see some beginners here who are interested in this. This is not going to be particularly appropriate to what you're going to be doing as beginners, but you might well be thinking about this next year or the year after. So I viewed it as an introduction to queen rearing.
This is the bees we think, oh, those are lovely bees, we want more of those. And we're gonna make 3 more queens as easy as pie from our best colony. Now, you've got to set it up on a double brood, and you might be thinking, well, actually, mine aren't a double brood, they're on a single brood. How am I going to get mine from there to there? It's dead easy. Your hive is strong, and it's strong, you know, in early May. Just put a bunch of foundation at the top, bring up 3 lots of comb from the bottom with brood on it, and the bees will follow that up and draw these frames out. And you can move the foundation from the middle to the back to the sides, swap them around till eventually all this is drawn up. So it's actually no difficulty getting your single brood into a double brood. Josh, yes?
The 3 spaces you've left there.
You just put your foundation down there, yeah. And then as this foundation's drawn out, you swap it for some foundation that isn't drawn out there. So within 2 or 3 weeks, you've got a double brood rather than a single brood. So this colony now thinks that its orientation is that way. The bees have always flown from the north, really, which is over there. So they don't try and come in the side, they don't try and come in the back. They know they're a north-facing colony. So that's one part of the operation. The other part of the operation is you're going to make this box think they're queenless. And if they think they're queenless, then they will start raising emergency cells, which you can then harvest. And of course, this is your best colony, so you want those emergency cells. So the first step is to put some sort of board between that box and that box, having got the queen into that box, so that these bees think they're queenless. Now you can use any sort of board to do this. This is a Horsley board that I've just modified by covering the middle up, but you could just use a simple board with an entrance. You could just make a board with an entrance in it, which has got bee space either side. We'll use this because if you didn't cover the middle, you've got the queen is down there. The pheromone would go up quite. Well, that would work, yeah, that'd be in effect a different way of doing it, wouldn't it? Yeah. But I've found if you don't put that in, it doesn't work, if the boxes are next to each other. So essentially, step 1 is to put that on there. The entrance is going, whoops, the other way around, which the reason for which will become obvious in a minute. So we've now got lower box with queen in, top box without a queen. These bees can't receive the pheromones from that queen. They're going to think that they need to make another queen. However, step 2 is to encourage the top box to fill with more bees than the bottom box. And that's easily done by turning the hive around. Okay, so bees that leave the hive now from the rear facing entrance will go out and come back and look for a north facing way back in, and there's a north facing way back in. So the top box will become heavily populated with the flying bees. The bottom box will become relatively depleted. So if this queen was thinking that this might be swarming week, she'd be profoundly discouraged by the fact that she's lost a great deal of the flying bees to the top box. So you've altered the distribution of bees. So the top box is now heavily populated, and it's going to do a good job of raising healthy big queen cells, whereas the bottom box is relatively depleted and the queen won't be making swarm preparations. That is completely simple. Split board in, rotate, that's day 0. Well, day 4 larvae are being converted. The total gestation is 16 days, so if you subtract the 2, these cells will hatch on day 12, given day 0 was when we did this. So you've got to do something before day 12, and today is day 10, so hopefully we haven't got a load of queens in our hive. We know we've got some cells, but we do have 2 days grace. So the plan is, what we want to do is to split the hive that's in the apiary, split this box into 3 nukes. So we should get three new queens. 1 nuke we're going to leave where it is, and the other 2 we're going to put in some polynukes, and I'm going to take those down to the apiary in Ripponden later on. So this is really just dead simple. Well, you could do it two ways. If you, say for instance, are going to put your two frames into there with some queen cells on, if you're going to leave them in the same apiary, you shake more bees in than if you're going to move them away. So if you're going to move them away, you would shake one lot of bees in. If you're going to leave them in the same apiary, because you get depletion back to the original location, you would put 3 lots in. The problem with doing that is you tend to run out of bees up here. So these are going to move away. So the recipe, I mean, this is just guesswork really. This is what the books say. So the recipe in the nuke is going to give them a frame of stores. Now you may think, God, that looks manky. What the hell is he putting that in there for? This has actually been sterilised by putting it in fumigating with acetic acid. So we know this is okay to use. There's a dummy board. There's a frame of space. So drawn comb. It obviously has some pollen in it at some point. Once again, a sterilised comb. And we're going to put 2 combs of brood from the original hive into there, and hopefully including 2 queen cells. Now if we're going to make 3 nukes, the queen cells might not be on the right frames. So what we might have to do is cut out a queen cell and stick it onto another frame to go in, or stick it back in here, because they may have built all the queen cells on 2 frames, but actually we want to divide those queen cells into 3 locations. So there might be a bit of shuffling about really. And that's all there is to it. And in 4 weeks' time, we should have a new queen mated and flying from there. This queen will be laying and carrying on, and there'll also be a new queen in that box. Absolutely simple.
Is there a name for this method?
It's called a vertical split. I mean, you can make it much more complicated, but that's the basic of it. And why wouldn't you do it? Because you're getting your best queen and you're getting 3 more. And you've done swarm control, because this queen's depleted of bees. She's not going to swarm this season, and you've got 3 new queens. A double brood donor colony, which has brood and 2 supers, and the plan with the entrance facing that way. So the plan is to put a split board between these 2 boxes and reverse the entrance. So that entrance moves around to here, and a new entrance to the top box will appear there. So returning bees will be driven into the top box, and bees leaving by this entrance will come back and also into the top box. So the bottom box, which is going to have the queen in, will be relatively depleted, and the top box, which is going to draw the queen cells, will be relatively overpopulated.
So this is for the vertical split, isn't it?
Yeah. So what we'll do, let's take the supers off and put them out of the way.
Okay.
Is just go through this top box and make sure the queen isn't in it, in which case we'll cover that up. Let's look through this box then.
Okay.
There's the queen.
Yep.
So my suggestion is, since there's 2 of us, we'll take a frame out from the bottom and put this frame into the bottom. It is a yellow queen, so the entrance, which is now facing you,
yes,
is going to end up.
So we want to lift box
but,
and entrance and move it through 180 degrees.
First of all, I'll put the split board on so we've got some cover over the bees. So there's when the entrance is open, there's going to be minimum communication between these 2 boxes of bees, so the upper box will think they're queenless. Okay.
So just to demonstrate this, if we pull that out, that opens the entrance and it closes off the communication for scent between the 2 hives.
So the bees leaving this entrance now will find that entrance on the same side and populate the top box. So this can go back on the top. But they'll be finding this as the way into the
There goes
hive.
the first one.
So they're now finding the new entrance neither has a queen, nor has it any pheromones that are coming upwards. So this box think they're queenless,
Yes.
but are very well provided with flying bees.
Yes.
So they should have plenty of weft to make some nice big queen cells.
Lovely.
Okay, this is the vertical split in action. So what we've got is the queen is in the bottom, and that hive was originally facing that way. So the queen's entrance is now at the back, and the split entrance, which is repopulating. You see how many bees are trying to get into here. So this is overpopulated with bees, and that's underpopulated with bees, but has the queen in it. There's two supers on because there's a lot of bees in there, so that's why they've got the supers at the moment. But that's going to have to change when we take all these nucs out. So there's no queen cells on there. We can't shake any of these frames because especially the one, well, we can't shake any of them with the queen cells on. Can everybody see? There's a queen cell there, but it's a bit of a stubby job. So could we put the two nucs sort of down there so we're ready to put some frames into them? There's a nice queen cell. Everybody see that? On there. And can you see? Do you want to get a bit closer? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Some at the bottom, 5, 6 on that. So shall we put this in a nuc, do you think?
Just to go back to the method that we're looking at though, I mean for most of you, we've got the potential, what, 4, 5 queens here, new queens. That'll be enough for nearly all of you, I suspect, with a technique that hasn't involved any specialist equipment. I mean, you could make that split board just with a crown board and put an extra rim around it and make a door and all that sort of thing.
That would be a nice one to push one into, wouldn't it? So what we're going to do is try and take this cell out. Yeah, I don't think we've damaged it there, is it? That's a cell there, isn't it? Yeah. So if we make a little indentation here, pop that.
Yep.
Can everybody see that we've taken a queen cell, what you might call a spare queen cell, added it to this nice frame of brood, and then we're going to put that in the second nuc. What we're going to do is just put an extra shake of bees into the one that Ian's got his hand on at the moment. Sorry?
Are these nurse bees?
Well, you really want nurse bees. I mean, it does say if you give the frame a shake, the flying bees come off. But so have we got the queen cell?
Yes. So there's not so many bees in there. So John Rogers made it a smaller hive by putting his fat dummy in.
Oh, right, fat dummy.
Right, is everybody with it? So we've put one queen cell back into here. We've put several queen cells in one nuc and one in another. So we've now got 3 up and going. My only concern is there's not much brood in here. Yeah, Alan has come up with a wonderful wheeze that we've got some brood at the bottom which we can use. So we've just bolstered them with some brood to keep them going. What we're going to do now is swap the orientation of the supers, because this is going to be the most active hive. That's going to be waiting for a queen. So we're going to put the supers on here. So the supers are going to go onto here. Now, if you remember the setup, these bees haven't been mixed with these bees for at least 2 weeks. So I'm going to put a sheet of newspaper on here just to let them meld together gently.
That's
Is that
about
right?
it. Yeah, you're about it, Roger.
Yeah. So do we all get that? Because the bees aren't used to each other, they've been separated. We're not just going to bang them together. And then the entrance faces this way, doesn't it? And you're going on there, Alan. The queen at the bottom, who's going to be slowly joined by the queens by the bees from the supers. Her entrance is still that way. All these flying bees know that this is their entrance. There's one queen cell in there, and we've given them some extra brood, and we've got two nucs over there with a queen cell each. So we should, in the end up with 1, 2, 3 queens. So Ian can have this queen back, his replacement queen, and those 2 queens can be used elsewhere.
Doesn't involve any complicated equipment, doesn't involve any delicate manoeuvres or anything else. It's really just all the skills that you have for looking at your hives on a normal basis. And we've now turned 1 queen effectively, as providing everything goes well and these new queens get mated. So there's now 4 queens, okay? And those queens can then be used to establish new colonies, or they could be used once they've got mated and so on to replace queens in your other hives that you would like to cull. And as this is a really good colony, as you've seen, hopefully that bad-tempered colony that you have, if it gets one of these queens in a few weeks' time, hopefully that colony will then become well-tempered, productive, etc. All the things that you're selecting for. Okay, does that all make sense to everybody? Okay, and that's something that everybody here can do.